Students, today topic is Mauryan administration. Okay, here we'll see Ashoka's inscriptions mentions all the main features of Mauryan administrations like king, subjects, relationship, political centers, important officers, and their duties. Some shots of messages were engraved on inscription found in western frontier province of modern Pakistan, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Ujjain, and other places. Some of the main feature evidence in the Ashokan inscriptions were given. Okay, as you can see, five main political centers. The largest political center of Maurya Empire was the capital itself. It was Patliputra. Except this, there were four provincial centers in Ashoka inscriptions. These four centers were Takshila, Ujjain, Tosli, and Swarnagiri. So here you can see a vast empire extended from northwestern frontier to Assam and Takshila to Karnataka. Is there any uniformity in the administrations? Okay, so here we see the second point, that unequal administrative system which clear, okay, the concept of uniformity. So you can see the Mauryan Empire was quite large. Included areas in the empire were of different types like mountainous region of Afghanistan and the coastal area of Odisha. So historians believe that it was not possible to establish an equal or same administrative system in such a diverse empire, but probably strict administrative control could have been there in capital of empire and other provincial center. For the provincial center, there was a selection of the provincial center. On the behalf of, you can see that there was a selection of provincial center. Whatever they select the provincial center were their importance. Okay, so here you can see Takshila and Ujjain were situated on important trading routes of long journey. If we talk about Swarnagiri, was important for gold mine of Karnataka. So the historians believe that the selection may be on the basis of their economic value or on the basis of the availability of resources. So here comes providing easy communication. Communication along both land and riverine route was vital for the existence of empire. Okay, it took weeks or months to reach province from the capital. It is obvious that the arrangement of diet and protection of people moving through the route could have been an important issue to control over the vast empire. Here you can find committee and subcommittee. Megasthenes mentioned about one committee and six subcommittee for the coordinating military activity. First subcommittee look after the navy. The second managed transport and provision. The third subcommittee was responsible for infantry. Okay. The fourth was responsible for horses. The fifth for chariot and sixth for elephant. Instead of that, activity of second subcommittee were little varied. It's arranged for bullock cart to carry equipment, procuring fodders for animals and food for soldiers, and recruiting artisan and servant to look after the soldiers. Then comes a very important point here, the appointment of Dham Mahamatra. So Ashoka tried to maintain unity in his empire. He also done this by propagating Dham. Concept of Dham was very simple and universal. He was one of viewing that obeying the Dham will be good for people in the world and beyond this world. That's why special officers called Dham Mahamatra were appointed. This thing is also mentioned in the inscription. So here comes the next topic, was an early empire. As we talk about the Mauryan, how important was this empire? Okay, so you can see when historian began reconstructing early Indian history in the 19th century, the emergence of the Mauryan empire was regarded as a landmark. Okay, India was then controlled under colonial rule and was part of British Empire. 19th and early 20th century, Indian historian found the possibility that there was an empire in early India, both challenging and exciting. So here you can see, if we talk about the Mauryan Empire, it was the first empire in the early history based on mutual harmony and religious intolerance. So some of the archaeologists, you can find that this historian or many of these historians found the masses on Ashoka inscriptions very different from that or of most of the other rulers. It's suggesting Ashoka was more powerful and industrious, as also more humble than later ruler who adopted grandiose title. So it is not surprising that the nationalist leaders in the 20th century regarded him as an inspiring figure. Okay, then comes the some of the archaeologists, they find whatever some of the archaeologists finds, okay, associated with Mauryan, including the stone sculptures, were considered to be example of the spectacular art typical of empire. Okay, so yet we do not have a clear picture about how important the Mauryan Empire was, as it lasted for about 150 years, which is not a very long time in the vast span of the history of the subcontinent. Besides, we notice that the empire did not include the entire subcontinent, and even within the frontiers of the empire, control was not uniform. By the 2nd century BC, new chiefdoms and kingdoms emerged in several parts of the subcontinent. So here comes the new notions of kingship. Okay, so you can see that who were the new chiefs and kings who emerged in the south between 600 BC to 680. Okay, so we'll talk about few of the rulers or few of the kingdom or the chief which emerged during this period. You can see the new kingdom that emerged in the Deccan and further south, including the chieftains of the Cholas, the Cheras and the Pandyas in Tamilakam. Okay, if we talk about Tamilakam, which is the part of what? Andhra Pradesh, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. In addition, you can see Tamil Nadu proved to be stable and prosperous. So we know about this state. If we talk about the Chola, Cheras and Pandyas, the informations we got was a variety of sources. For instance, the early Tamil Sangam text contained poem describing chiefs and the way which they acquired and distributed resources. So many chiefs and kings, including the Satavahanas, who ruled and over the parts of western and central India, and the Sakyas and people of the Central Asian origin who established kingdom in the northwestern and western parts of the subcontinent, derived revenue from long distance trade. So their social origins were often not clear. But as we will see in the case of the Satavahanas, when they acquired power, they attempt to claim social status in a variety of ways, which will be discussed later.